Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Andy Tucker, MD at Naturetrek, and joining me from the other side of the world in Colombia, Bogota, my good friend Rob Smith. Unfortunately, Rob's camera is not working. His presentation is working, but we can't get his camera working. So you can't see Rob's live face, unfortunately, but I'm really pleased he's joining me from over in Colombia this evening. It's quite unusual that we do a webinar in the height of summer. Normally too much going on, and with the light evenings. We normally keep these kinds of presentations to the winter months, but Rob himself guided a couple of our Multicoloured Tanager tours last winter, as well as one of our Go Slow tours, and was so enthusiastic about how the tours went. He said, Andy, we've got to get together over the summer and just give some publicity to these great tours while people are thinking about booking for the coming winter. And on the back of that, myself and Rob together, working together, we've just launched a new tour which goes to the Yanos in Colombia in search of jaguar and some other exciting mammals. And Rob's just going to touch on that new idea, which has gone live on our website yesterday, right at the end of his presentation. So if you're a mammal person, do look into that tour. The Yanos hold special memories for me. It's the first tour I ever led for Naturetrek to Venezuela back in 1998. And of course, tourism to Venezuela has been a no-go zone for the last 15 years or so. With the heartbreaking Chavez regime. So I'm really delighted that the Yanos over the Colombian border are opening up now to ecotourism. It's a very exciting place. But as I say, really pleased to have Rob with me tonight. Rob was a full-time Naturetrek member of staff until, I think, 2018, wasn't it, Rob? Then emigrated to Colombia, and now with his partner Claudia and team over there look after our operations in Colombia and take excellent care of our groups. So that's it from me. I'm pleased to be on tonight. Over to you, Rob, if you want to kick off and quickly introduce yourself, if I haven't introduced you already, to your satisfaction.
Many thanks, Andy. Good evening, everyone. Many thanks for joining. My apologies for the camera. Not sure what's happened there, but thankfully we've got some nice slides of birds and scenery and lots of good photos from Colombia, which I'm going to get into in this presentation. So yeah, as Andy mentioned, I'm Rob Smith. I live out in Bogota in Colombia. And this evening I'm going to be principally discussing two of Naturetrek's most popular birding tours, the Go Slow tour and the Multicoloured Tanager tour. They're both fantastic tours in their own right, but they're quite different. And I'm going to do my best to compare and contrast those tours so that hopefully, if you're thinking about joining one of them, you can make an informed decision and pick the tour that's most suitable for you. So just a quick introduction to Colombia as a country. As you can see here from this slide, Colombia's at the north of South America. You can see from here that it has a Pacific coast on the west and a Caribbean coast to the north. There's 3 branches of the Andes that split from the southern point at the border of Ecuador down here. It splits into the western, the central, and the eastern Andes. And then to the east, you have the plains of the Orinoco and the Amazon watersheds. So this next slide just splits up the 5 major biomes of Colombia. Colombia is obviously, I'm sure you know, one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. And that biodiversity is driven really by these 5 major biomes that you find in Colombia. So as I mentioned, you've got the Amazon region to the south, that green region. This is the Orinoco watershed here, this orangey one. The 3 ranges of the Andes are represented here by that brown, dark brown section running from the south to the north. And then you have this green Pacific Choco. It's known as the Choco biogeographical region, which is essentially a forested Pacific slope, which is extremely diverse, one of the most biodiverse regions of them all. We'll be touching on that later on in the tour because we have the Multicoloured Tanager tour visits that region, and you have the option to extend on the Go Slow Tour there as well. And there's also to the north here, the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, this triangular spot here, which I'll be touching on later as well. It's actually not part of the Andes. It's a separate mountain range. And it's one of the locations where you find most endemism, particularly with birds in the whole of Colombia. And then on the northern coast, you have the Caribbean here. So we have Bogota, the capital, right in the heart of Colombia, which is located about 2,500 meters in the eastern branch of the Andes. Conveniently, both tours use a direct flight from London Heathrow straight into Bogota, and they both take a short connecting flight to the Andean city of Pereira, which is just above the mouse here. Pereira's located in the heart of what's known as the Zona Cafetera, or the coffee triangle. So it's a great place for coffee. It's an extremely lush and productive growing region. So both tours essentially start in Pereira. The Go Slow tour then relocates just north to Manizales, and that's where we're based for 7 nights. The Multicoloured Tanager tour runs in a few different places, but crosses into Manizales as well, and I'll get into that in just a sec. So just to go through Colombia, sort of some of its biodiversity stats. It has more, or there have been more birds recorded in Colombia than any other country in the world. So we're approaching 2,000 species now, approaching 500 species of mammals, 1,300 species of reptile, amphibian, and an incredible diversity of plants, including over 4,000 species of orchids. So it's an incredibly biodiverse location. Any visit here will surely thrill and excite any keen naturalist. So yeah, getting back to these 2 tours, the Multicoloured Tanager tour and the Go Slow tour. As I say, they're both cracking tours, but one might be more suitable than the other. So I'm going to try and break this down for you now. So on the left, we have the Multicoloured Tanager tour, which is a fast-paced multi-destination birding tour. Compare that with the Go Slow tour. The Go Slow tour is a single center birding tour. So you stay 7 nights in the same place. The Multicoloured Tanager tour covers both the central and the western Andes, whereas the Go Slow tour covers your base is in the central Andes in a location called Manizales, which, as I said, is just to the north of Pereira, where you actually start the land arrangements of the tour. However, you can extend the Go Slow tour in Montezuma Rainforest Lodge, which is in the western Andes. And Montezuma, conveniently, is one of the locations that you visit on the Multicoloured Tanager tour. So again, I'll be going into some more detail on that later on in the talk. In terms of extending the Multicoloured Tanager tour, you can do it back-to-back with the popular Santa Marta Endemics tour, and possibly, or the Magdalena Valley as well. So there's lots of options to consider. As I say, both tours fly into Bogota on a direct flight from London into Pereira, and then they start and continue on from Pereira. And essentially, the Go Slow tour is an extended version of days 3 to 6 of the Multicoloured Tanager tour, although there are a few key differences which I'll try to explain now. So what makes the Go Slow tour unique and different from the Multicoloured Tanager tour? Well, as I mentioned, it's a single center tour, so you spend 7 nights in one lodge. The lodge we use is called Hacienda Venecia, pictured here. It's actually a working coffee farm, and it's located about 20 minutes, half an hour drive from the city of Manizales in the foothills of the Central Andes. So you're perched up, I say foothills, you're actually perched up at around 1,500 meters, which by Colombian standards in terms of temperature is the perfect zone for a lovely a lovely warm and comfortable temperature in the day, cools down in the evening, but it never gets too hot. So it's an absolutely fantastic climate to be based at for the 7 days that you're there. The hacienda, as I say, is a working coffee farm. You can see out to the right of this picture, you can see some of the coffee slopes which are shade grown. So you have these coffee plantations surrounding the accommodations. The rooms themselves are well appointed, very comfortable, without being desperately luxurious or over luxurious. But it's more the location and the surroundings which are just fantastic. This is one of the communal areas in the lodge, so where we might do the bird lift in the evening with the drink. And we'll certainly be exploring the gardens of the lodge, which are kind of lush cloud forests. There's lots of great house birds and garden birds to be seen around. So we can spend plenty of time in the gardens, birding there, especially in the early days of the tour when everything's new and we're getting accustomed to birding in the neotropics in Colombia. So some of the birds we might expect to see around the gardens include species like blue-necked tanager, the endemic flame rump tanager. These are common birds that we will expect to see. And the mot's common. They breed in the hacienda grounds themselves. And another sought after species, which is commonly seen early in the mornings, is bar-crested antshrike. So it's a great, the hacienda itself is a wonderful place to be based. We have our meals, breakfasts and dinners, especially in this lovely setting, which is to the side of the lodge. The angle from where the picture's been taken is actually open-sided, so it's almost like al fresco dining. And for breakfast, you get tropical fruits, juices, eggs to order, pancakes, all the good stuff. And all the food is freshly prepared by a wonderful team of cooks. They cater very well to vegetarian diets and to vegan diets, etc. So it's a great place in terms of our base. One of the advantages of being there is the coffee itself. It's on tap, you'd never have to pay, so you can just grab a coffee whenever you want. And during our stay, we have the option to do a coffee tour, which is included in the tour. So on one of the afternoons, you go off for an hour or so, and you just wander around the plantation, and at the end, you do a tasting session to taste some of the different varieties of coffee that the hacienda produces. And yeah, I can tell you it's some of the best coffee in the world. This region in Colombia, I'm sure you've hopefully all tasted some Colombian coffee, but this region in particular produces some of the smoothest and best coffee of Colombia itself. So in terms of one of the kind of distinctions between those two tours is the time that you have to relax on the go slow. So generally the theme running through the week is that you still make early starts. That's important in the neotropics because the best birding is early in the morning. So early starts can be expected. However, we tend to do the birding on the go slow early in the morning. And then either we'll come back to the hacienda for lunch or we'll have lunch in the reserve that we're visiting. But either way, we come back and the afternoons are generally free. So you have time to relax, take a dip in the pool, do a bit of additional birding. The guide's always on hand if you want to do some extra birding around the lodge gardens and so forth. But alternatively, you can read a book and chill. So that's one of the real differences between the Multicoloured Tanager tour and the Go Slow tour. So how are the two tours similar? Well, as I mentioned, the Go Slow tour is essentially days 3 to 6 of the Multicoloured Tanager tour. So the birds that you can expect to see in that region are the same. In terms of birds, you can see the same species when you're in that region on the Multicoloured Tanager tour as you can on the Go Slow tour. And there's really some fantastic species to be seen in the area, such as this gray-breasted mountain toucan, hooded mountain tanagers, another spectacular species that can be seen in the area. Sword-billed hummingbird is always a pleasure to see, and it's practically guaranteed in one of the reserves we visit. We visit that same reserve on both tours. It's called Hacienda El Bosque. There's wonderful hummingbird variety to be seen on both tours. So you get great spectacular species like long-tailed sylph. And as I say, both tours visit fantastic private reserves in and around Manizales. So whether you do the Go Slow or the Multicoloured Tanager tour, you'll be visiting incredible reserves, spectacular locations. This picture was taken on the March 25 Go Slow tour. It's a small private reserve that's adjacent to the Rio Blanco Reserve. And here the group's we've done our birding for the morning. We've seen great species and people are just kicking back, having a coffee. And this was our lunch setting. So after a drink, we had lunch, time to chill before we headed back to the hacienda for a relaxed afternoon. And this is the view that people are enjoying from that setting. So they're actually looking back down at the city of Manizales, which you can see in the center of the picture here. So yeah, this is a picture taken at Hacienda El Bosque. This is a different reserve. It's relatively new reserve that's been running for, well, I say new. I first went there in 2018. So it's been going a good number of years and it's become really popular with birders because you can see a number of really highly desirable species there, as well as really spectacular stuff like that gray-breasted mountain toucan, sword-billed hummingbird, and so on. And both tours visit this cracking reserve. So both tours also enjoy time at feeders as well as time on the trail, birding on the trail. However, because the Multicoloured Tanager tour is more of an fast-paced birding tour, you do more birding on the trail than compared with the Go Slow tour. So that's one small distinction, especially considering that with the Go Slow, we tend to go back to the hacienda for the afternoon, whereas on the Multicoloured Tanager tour, either you'll be using those afternoons to enjoy additional birding, or on moving days, you'll be moving to a new location overland. But again, more great species can be seen in this area on both those tours. There's a number of like iconic Andean species that we'll be searching out on both tours as well, such as torrent duck and the wonderful white-capped dipper. And of course, both tours have the chance of seeing the spectacular Andean condor as well. However, there's no guarantees of Andean condor in this region. I'd say probably on both tours, you've got a 50-50 chance, I would say. Both tours offer great opportunities for bird photography. However, with the slower nature of the Go Slow, I would say that's perhaps slightly more time in terms of photography, because on the Multicoloured Tanager tour, you're looking to see, you know, all the key regional species, and also searching out some of the more skulking and tricky species, taping them in and so forth. So perhaps a little bit more time in terms of photography on the Go Slow, but either way, you should come home with some cracking photos of spectacular birds like this masked trogon or crimson mantled woodpecker. Again, we're still in that same region around Manizales that both tours visit. Both tours get great chances to enjoy hummingbirds. There's a number of gardens that we'll visit on both tours. So hummingbirds are a given, really. And there's some fantastic species to be enjoyed on both, such as mountain velvet breast. Both tours as well visit some spots where there are ant pitter feeding stations. So this is crescent-faced ant pitter. This is one of the most desirable ant pitters on both tours, to be honest. Well, in all of Colombia, frankly, because this species is so hard to see in the field that it's almost impossible to see away from a feeding station. So both tours visit a feeding station where we'll try to see this spectacular little antpitter, although even though it's a feeding station, there's no guarantees, of course, but generally speaking, we do see crescent-faced antpitter on both tours. Another variety of antpitter that can be seen on both is the wonderful chestnut crowned. I would say this one's perhaps a touch more reliable. And there's, in addition to these two species, you've got the endemic brown-banded antpitter, slate crowned as well. So there's various different antpitters that can be seen in this region. And they'll go to feeding stations on both tours. There's some great mixed species, flocks that can be enjoyed in the cloud forests on both tours, where you might come into contact with species like pearl tree runner or plush cap, amongst a variety of other species in a mixed species flock. And birding in a mixed species flock is such a thrilling event. If you do come across, and you're lucky enough to come across one on tour, it's fast and frantic trying to identify species as they kind of barrel through. So hopefully, you get to experience that on one of these tours. Species like white-capped tanager, they're more wide-ranging. They don't join mixed species flock, but your guide will be listening out. They're very vocal, so if we hear them, we can generally call them in. And it's one of a really spectacular tanager that we'll certainly be looking to see on both tours. And of course, we'll be looking for rarities as well on both. So these barred parakeets were a real treat on the previous March Go Slow tour that I led. They're really hard to see perched, so we were really fortunate to see them. Normally you get a brief glimpse of them in flight if you're lucky, so the group were really lucky to see these guys. Although I would say that given that you're spending generally more time in the field, the chances of seeing real rarities are increased on the Multicoloured Tanager tour. So both tours visit the wonderful Parque Nacional Natural Los Nevados, a bit of a mouthful. As you can see from this slide, Los Nevados is an active volcano in the heart of the Central Andes. And the slopes of the volcano have a number of really specialized species that we'll be searching out on both tours. However, one point of difference here is, I mentioned to you on the Go Slow tour that generally the days are birding in the morning and back for lunch. The one exception is the day that we go up to Los Nevados, up to this particular spot, because it takes time to get up there from the hacienda. So it's a full day tour, full day excursion. So it's the only day where we'll leave early in the morning, we'll come back sort of about 5 in the afternoon. It's the only exception on the Go Slow where we're out all day. And it's certainly worth it because it's such a spectacular location, beautiful scenery throughout the entire day. And the birding's wonderful. There's quiet trails that we can bird up there at various different altitudes, trying for different species as we go. And then right up at the top, you get into this wonderful paramo habitat, which is a neotropical savanna which occurs above the tree line. And it's punctuated by these Esphalettia plants that you see here in this picture, which are specialized plants of the paramo habitat, related to sunflowers actually. And these plants, as you can see, they grow very slowly year upon year. They die out and then grow above, building up that central stem as they go. So it's a real feature of these unique paramo habitats that you find in central, mostly in South America, but although there are a few spots in Central America as well with paramo habitat. Some of the more common birds that we might see up there include scarlet-bellied mountain tanager, common but nonetheless absolutely spectacular. Many-striped canastero is a high-altitude specialist that we'll be looking out for as well. But the real big target for both tours when we're up here, for both the Multicoloured Tanager and the Go Slow, is the unique and endemic buffy helmet crest. So this is a special hummingbird that's only found In this particular spot in the central Andes of Colombia, it occurs above around 3,600 meters. So you have to be up in the high altitude to see it. And we know some great spots where we can seek out, in particular, the spectacular males, one of which is pictured here. The males have the wonderful crest and the beard coming down. And to date, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, at the end of the talk, since you've been running the Multicoloured Tanager tour and Go Slow, etc., we've never dipped on this bird, which is a real kind of highlight of both the tours, really. Since we're up at altitude, I would mention that both tours allow sufficient acclimatization. The itineraries have been designed very carefully to ensure that we're well acclimatized when we get up to these high altitudes. So on the Go Slow, it's a case of birding different reserves in the days leading up to that. So we're gradually increasing our altitude exposure before we finally get up to Los Nevados right at the end of the tour. In terms of the Multicoloured Tanager tour, actually, because you're moving around a little bit more, you will have spent time in Manizales prior to that, getting up to those high altitudes. And of course, there's always a surprise or two along the way. So this is a two-toed, Hoffman's two-toed sloth that we saw on the previous Go Slow tour in March. He wasn't very surprised to see us, as you can see. He slept through the whole thing. But nonetheless, the group really enjoyed that sighting. It's always good when we can add a mammal or two along the way. We can potentially see howler monkeys, Colombian red howler monkeys, red-tailed squirrels, and a few other mammals in this region. The Multicoloured Tanager tour certainly does have potential for a few other mammals because it does visit some other locations as well. Okay, so I think that really gives you hopefully, and you're hopefully following me, that hopefully gives you kind of a good lead on what the Go Slow tour is all about. And as I say, those regions that we've been covering are also covered on the Multicoloured Tanager tour. Okay, so we're going to now focus on some of the different features of the Multicoloured Tanager tour. So as you can see from this map, or not, it's not super clear, but you come into Bogota and you spend time in this Andean region, you're moving around a little bit here. And then afterwards you go over to Montezuma Rainforest Lodge and then down to Cali at the end. So you're adding on 3 or so additional locations, as well as the reserves that occur between those locations when you take the Multicoloured Tanager tour. So you're visiting additional habitats, additional reserves. That in turn leads to more species. And of course, because it's a more fast-paced birding tour, you'll be looking for all the key regional endemics and Colombian endemics along the way. So just to recap, we're into Bogota and we start the tour in Pereira, spending time in the central Andes before then going over to the western Andes on this western Pacific slope. The tour itself kicks off in Otunquimbaya, which is just near to Pereira. It's a wonderful cloud forest reserve, which has some great trails to bird, nice and quiet, and there's great species. So you'll see more endemics on this Multicoloured Tanager tour, starting off most likely with the wonderful Caucaguan, which occurs in Otunquimbaya. It's basically the only spot that we can see this Colombian endemic on the entire tour. It's also a great place to see red-ruffed fruit crow, which although having a very wide distribution, is very difficult to see across its distribution. So we have almost a guaranteed chance of seeing this red-ruffed fruit crow, this huge member of the Cotinga family, which occurs in Otunquimbaya. The Multicoloured Tanager tour does not stay at the coffee hacienda where we stay on the Go Slow. Instead, we stay in a lodge, which is located just to the east on the outskirts of Manizales. It's nevertheless a great spot. It's fringed by wonderful cloud forest, as you can see from this picture. And it's a great base for a couple of nights whilst we're birding those reserves around Manizales. Another distinguishing feature of the Multicoloured Tanager tour is that we actually stay up in the high altitude region of Los Nevados. And we do that at the Termales del Ruiz Hotel, which we see here pictured. It's a great spot. So we spend a night here on the Multicoloured Tanager tour. And it allows us just to do additional birding up in these high altitude slopes, where we can see some great, high altitude specialists. It's also another nice feature of this hotel is that it has these naturally occurring thermal hot springs, which the hotel have funneled into lovely pools, and you can enjoy a nice thermal hot spring bath at the end of a long day's birding. So that's a nice feature of staying up here in this hotel. It also has great hummingbird gardens. So you can see some seated area in the foreground here. And just behind that, from where the picture's actually been taken, is a hummingbird garden where we can see some wonderful species there as well. I would say, though, that we do visit this hotel. We come here for lunch on the Go Slow tour. So despite the fact we don't stay here, we do visit, and we do enjoy the hummingbird gardens and the surrounding area. As a general rule, as I've kind of touched on already, we'll dedicate more time to finding skulking and difficult to see species on the Multicoloured Tanager tour, such as the likes of this Paramo tapaculo, ocellated tapaculo, and we'll perhaps try to find other skulky species in different locations throughout the Multicoloured Tanager tour. So that's another slight, a differing approach to the birding that we take compared to the Go Slow. Because we're actually spending the night in this high altitude hotel, we also have a slightly better chance of seeing the rare and endemic rufous-fronted parakeet, which is nevertheless a hard species to see, but it's more active very early in the morning. So the fact that we're already located up at that hotel gives us that chance of seeing this sought-after Colombian endemic. Having spent time in the Central Andes, the Multicoloured Tanager tour then relocates to Montezuma Rainforest Lodge, pictured here. And to get there, we cross over the Cauca River, which is the river that separates the Central and the Western Andes. So we're moving towards that Pacific side. Conveniently, if you go for the Go Slow tour, if you choose that that's the tour for you, you can also extend time here, and I would highly recommend you do so, with a 4-night extension. So whilst the Multicoloured Tanager tour visits this as part of the main tour, the Go Slow offers it as an extension. So just bear that in mind as we look through some of the slides for this, one of the best birding locations in all of Colombia, and frankly, in all of South America, in my opinion. So as I say, we're now located in these Western Andes, and we have access to this Pacific Choco slope. So it's one of the most biodiverse regions on the planet. And the house list of Montezuma Rainforest Lodge is like 600 species. It's like phenomenally, mind-blowingly diverse in terms of birds and the rest. So staying here gives us access to Tatama National Park. And it's one of those places that anyone who's really birded in Colombia, it's part of the kind of history of birding in Colombia. This is Andy here on his recce, I think back in 2015 or 2016, I would think, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong. And here they're having a break for lunch, it looks like. On the left of the picture, there's a lady in a hat there. That's Michelle. She's kind of the boss. She owns Montezuma Rainforest Lodge. So she's part of Colombian birding history. And hopefully when you go there, she'll be around and you can say hello. She doesn't do much guiding these days, but a couple of her daughters and a nephew are local guides in the reserve. And as I say, it's just one of those kind of like etched into Colombian birding history spots that's a real really worth getting to if you're going out birding in Colombia. This is a more recent picture taken from the Go Slow extension. 4 guests joined me birding for 4 nights in Montezuma Rainforest Lodge on the last tour that I led back in March. And it offers lots of great birds and many more Colombian endemics, like this chestnut-bellied flower piercer. And there are a number of really emblematic tanagers, these huge Banksia tanagers, which include black and gold tanager and gold ring tanager. Whilst they're kind of like mega targets whilst we're there, they're actually locally common. So once you're in the area, you have a really high chance of seeing them. But as soon as you step away from this region, then that's it, you're done. There's lots of choco specials to be enjoyed here as well. As I say, the birding's really diverse. One of the great features of birding from Montezuma Lodge is that you drive up in 4-wheel drives, and you get up to these high points at about 2,500 meters, and the lodge is situated at 1,500 meters or so. And it gives you this huge slope, this huge altitudinal gradient to bird, and you bird at different spots along the trail. So it gives you access to these different suites of birds as you bird the different altitudinal steps along the gradient. And there's lots of spectacular birds, of course, that you'll see along the way, like velvet purple coronet, orange-breasted fruit eater, the quite elusive and difficult to see black solitaire. As I say, the diversity here is spectacular. Orchids in particular are extremely well represented. If you ask the local guides, you'll always be with a local guide when you're birding here. They'll know which orchids are in flower and which spot, and they can point them out to you as you go and bird the slope. This is a picture taken sort of midway along that gradient. It's just a spectacular place. It's quite unique. And certainly if you do choose the Go Slow tour, I would highly recommend that you take the extension and go to Montezuma. In the same way that the Go Slow is a single center tour, the Go Slow extension here is just 4 nights, single center. And yeah, this is the gardens around the lodge itself, which are packed full of flowering plants and hummingbird feeders. You can expect to see around 17 species of hummingbird just in the gardens next to the main lodge where you have your meals. Occasionally we get Tyra coming into the gardens trying to grab a banana from the tanager feeders. And as I say, there's wonderful hummingbirds to be seen just in the gardens around the lodge. So whether you do it as part of the Multicoloured Tanager tour or Go Slow extension, it's highly recommended that you get to Montezuma Rainforest Lodge. Okay, so from here, the Multicoloured Tanager tour bears south, and we head to another famous birding location in Colombia known as Kilometer 18 or Kilometro 18, which is just outside the city of Cali, situated in Colombia's western branch of the Andes. So we've got great chances of seeing ornate hawk eagle, normally seen in flight if you're really lucky perched. The last 2 nights of the tour, of the Multicoloured Tanager tour, stay in the wonderful Araucana Lodge. It's a relatively new lodge. It was opened up just before the pandemic, if I'm not mistaken. It was built with birders in mind. So all the breakfasts and meals are managed with birders in mind. The gardens are very bird rich, and it's just a lovely place to finish off the tour. Lovely, well-appointed bedrooms. And as I say, there's great birds just around the gardens and the feeders around the lodge itself. So lots of spectacular tanagers like saffron crown tanager, And whilst you're staying here and birding in the surrounding area, you visit several private reserves which are packed full of great birds. So you'll get to nice feeding stations as well as birding trails and forested trails as well. There's excellent chances of golden-headed quetzal in the area. As I say, the tanager diversity here is off the scale, and there's really spectacular species to be seen, like this purple mantled tanager. Lots of great hummingbirds, just easily seen at feeders, like white-booted rackettail, always a favorite. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll be looking out for more cryptic species like these lyre-tailed nightjars. We know a couple of good roosting spots for this species. So we'll be looking out for not only the showy, spectacular birds, but also the special cryptic species to be found in and around the reserves that we visit, including ant pitters and ant birds, ant wrens, and all the rest. Toucan barbet's another real sort of spectacular choco speciality that we can see in a wonderful little spot called Doña Dora, which is also etched into Colombia birding folklore. Excuse me. And of course, it wouldn't be the multicolored tanager tour if we didn't see the multicolored tanager itself. So this is obviously the bird that the tour is named after. It's, as you can see, an absolutely stonking species. It's always been seen since the tour has been run. So a bit like the Banksia tanagers that I mentioned earlier. It's rare, but when you're in the right locations, you're in the right reserves, you're practically guaranteed to see this species. So we finish the multicolored tanager tour with this wonderful bird, hopefully at the end. As I alluded to earlier, the multicolored tanager tour can be combined with the Santa Marta Endemics tour. Santa Marta Endemics is run in the same vein as the multicolored tanager tour, so it's a fast-paced birding tour. And as the name suggests, it's birding around the Santa Marta region, and you're going up into the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, which are this mountain range that are separate from the Andes. They sit right on Colombia's Caribbean coast, and they're a real center of endemism, particularly in terms of birds. So you get the chance to see perhaps as many as 18 they're not just Colombian endemics, they're Santa Marta endemics. They're only found in this particular mountain range. So you get to see those species on that Santa Marta endemics tour. So just to recap, we're up here now in this triangular shaped mountain range called the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta. The tour itself also birds a few days on the Caribbean coast because there's some wonderful regional endemics available on that Caribbean coast. So you're birding some these intertidal regions and the scrub desert that borders these coastal regions for species like this vermilion cardinal. These are regional endemics as their distributions cross over into Venezuela. But essentially, sadly, as Andy alluded to in his introduction, birding's for the most part off limits in Venezuela. So these species are really only safely accessed from Colombia these days. And then when you get up into the mountains, you start hitting the suite of Santa Marta endemics, such as this diminutive little Santa Marta woodstar, black-cheeked mountain tanager, white-tipped quetzal, all spectacular species. White-tailed star frontlet as well is up there. And as I say, there's as many as 18, even more if you're lucky, Santa Marta endemics that you can see during that particular tour. One of my favorites, the Santa Marta screech owl, which was only described 10, 12 years ago now. You'll make a special effort on an owling excursion in the evening to try to find this incredibly rare bird. And that really rounds off my talk. Hopefully that has given you some insight into the differences between the Go Slow and the Multicoloured Tanager tour. As I said at the top of the talk, they're both fantastic birding tours, and whichever one you choose to go on, you'll have a wonderful time. And yeah, thank you very much for joining, for listening, and I invite anyone who has any questions.
Thanks, Rob. That's great. Excuse me, it brings back some memories. I wasn't expecting to appear there halfway through, but yeah, 2015 was my trip, which got us featuring Colombia again. Had a wonderful 2 weeks there, November that year. And I think that's my shot there, that cover shot looking across to Tatama National Park. That's at the top of the track at the military station above Montezuma Lodge. And yeah, the scenery there and just no people, no roads as far as the eye can see. It's a magical place. And you said it's one of Colombia's top birding sites. Arguably, that's the best morning's birding I've ever had on that road. Montezuma, fantastic.
I don't get bored of going there. I've been there many, many times.
Yeah,
such a great place.
Yeah, great stuff. A couple of questions have come in while you've been talking, Rob. I've covered an altitude one. How high do we go? Nevada de Ruiz, about 4,000 meters, 12,500 feet. But the tours, Rob, are designed in a way that people should be acclimatized by the time we go up there. And the key is not to do anything energetic on that day, to take advantage of the local coca tea.
Absolutely. Yeah, so as I kind of mentioned in the talk, the Multicoloured Tanager tour, you stay a few nights. You're actually based in the city of Manizales beforehand, and you're birding gradually up in different reserves the days before. And also on the Go Slow, you're based a little bit lower, but during the day you're birding these reserves in the days leading up to Los Nevados. You're gradually going up in altitude. We start off with the lower reserves and move up through the day. So you're well acclimatized by the time you go up to Los Nevados at the end of that tour.
Thanks, Rob. Andrew Burke, I'm going to take one or two of your questions. You asked earlier about extensions and upgrades, and you've just asked are there tailor-made tours to Colombia. So first of all, that latter one, group tours are great, of course. You meet new friends. There's a shared experience, companionship. But there's also an element of compromise, isn't there, on a group tour? If you go with 8, 9 strangers, at some point in the tour, you have to make some kind of compromise or another. So tailor-made travel might be right for some of you. You can afford to be much more selfish, dictate the pace of each day, dictate the hours you keep in the field, maybe go for specific targets. If you're a keen photographer, then the tailor-made arrangements can work well for you because, as I say, you can dictate the pace. And Rob's team in Colombia look after all of our tailor-made business as well. So if these destinations appeal to you, but you're not sure if if you're not sure if a group tour is right for you, do drop us a line and we can discuss some private tour arrangements for you. In terms of extensions and upgrades, I think Rob's done a pretty good job of talking about extensions. They're almost, if you haven't been to Colombia, it can get quite confusing talking about all these options and having place names thrown at you. But essentially, the Multicoloured Tanager tour fits seamlessly with Santa Marta. And I think a 10, 11, 12-day birding trip, if you're leaving your partner at home or you have work commitments and limited annual leave, that's a nice package of time to be away. But equally, if you're spending £1,000 on your airfare, you might think, well, 10, 11, 12 days isn't enough. I want to make that £1,000 on the airfare go the distance. I want to be away for 2 to 3 weeks. And that's when combining the two tours back to back works really well. Just a quick word for me on the Go Slow, really just to emphasize the message that Rob's had. And Go Slow for us at Naturetrek, we're well aware that a birding tour in the Andes, like the Multicoloured Tanager trip, is quite hard going. You're spending 10, 12, 14 hours in the field each day. And some of our clients, 70s and older, perhaps don't have the stamina they once had, but want to go and experience this great birding, but don't want to feel absolutely exhausted at the end of it. So the whole philosophy behind the Go Slow tours, we started in Europe for us, single centre European breaks in Spain and Italy. We just felt we wanted to bring South America into that portfolio and create a product whereby you're getting some great birding, but you're doing it in a relaxed fashion with 6, 7, 8 hours in the field a day instead of 11, 12, 13. with that all-important relaxation time built in and birding at a nice slow pace with no strenuous walking. So that's the philosophy behind the Go Slow. But the Go Slow, that's I think a 10 or 11-day package. But as Rob said, you can extend that. We do a cultural tour in Bogota, which pads out 2 extra days at the start. And then the Montezuma Cloud Forest Lodge adds 4 nights at the end. So do both of those and you're looking at a 2.5-week trip. But we can discuss lots of different options with you by the telephone. I want to move on to your question now, Caroline Archdale, which is a really important question concerning the Foreign Office travel advice. You know that the FCDO currently advises travel to the Choco region. And I noticed you put a Jagu up there, Rob. I'm going to get you back on that in a minute if I can, because I've just put a link to our new tour up. If possible, I'm going to share my screen.
So this is an important point, Andy, because the Choco habitat is distinguished from the Choco region as it's named by Colombia.
Yeah.
So when I refer to the Choco biogeographical region, it's that whole Pacific slope that I'm discussing.
Can you see my map up there, Rob? Is that shared okay?
Let's see.
I've hopefully shared my Foreign Office travel advice map for Colombia with everybody. Hopefully that's coming across.
I can't see that right now. What I would say, yeah. Just to be absolutely clear, Montezuma Rainforest Lodge is located in the department of Risaralda, which is the majority of which is actually forms part of the Central Andes, but it crosses over into that Western Andean region, and which is where Montezuma Rainforest Lodge is located. So it's part of the green region on the FCO. So as you know, Andy, all the tours that we operate in Colombia only visit those green regions. We don't cross into any yellow regions.
Yeah, keep
even
on
though
this,
some
Rob.
of the names
Yeah.
can be confusing.
Thanks, Andrew. You've just confirmed you, the audience, are seeing this shared screen. So exactly what Rob's talking about. Pereira, the town, can you see my cursor there? That's the gateway to Montezuma. And Montezuma is on the way to that orange zone. But as Rob has importantly just pointed out, we don't venture into this orange area. And as you can see from the map, Colombia is pockmarked by these orange areas. This is where the Foreign Office advises against all non-essential travel. And Caroline, I think you're quite right. If we as a tour operator venture into those orange areas and something happens to the group, we're held up by gunpoint or there's a serious accident or whatever else, your own personal travel insurance would likely be invalidated, as would our tour operator liability insurance. So absolutely vital that we treat the FCDO advice as biblical, really. We just absolutely focus on this map and stick strictly 100% to the green areas. And thankfully, although at first glance you think, well, vast swaths of Colombia covered in orange, actually, thankfully, from a tour operator point of view, there's some fantastic birding sites which are in green, and we stick rigidly to those areas. So hopefully that covers that question. Is that clear for everybody? Let us know if it's not and you want us to follow up on that at all. The Julie Fawcett, thanks for your question, and thank you again for all of us joining you. I can see lots of familiar names in the attendance list. There's over, well, nearly 60 of you logged on tonight. It's probably, I don't know, 100 individuals. Lots of familiar names there, and we're really extremely grateful for all of your loyalty and business over the years. Thank you very much. Julie Fawcett, the name of the lodge with the thermal hot springs, and can you add that as an extension to the Go Slow? Do you want to take that one, Rob?
Sure. Yeah, the name of the lodge is Hotel Termales del Ruiz. Termales refers to the hot water, and Ruiz refers to the mountain. We do, as I mentioned, we do visit that lodge on a day excursion. But equally, if you did want to spend some nights up there on an extension, it would be a private extension, you could do so. You could spend a few nights up there after the main tour itself. That would be easily done.
Yeah, great. I think we've covered all the questions, Rob. If I can just ask you to finish by going over to your Jaguar slide. You've been down to the Colombia Yanos. I haven't. I've got to
Yeah.
go down there in my next visit to Colombia. Just tell us a bit about this new tour we've put together and about your experience down there.
Yeah, so the tour, as the name suggests and as the picture suggests, we're particularly targeting views of jaguar. There's a special, it's a working ranch, cattle ranch actually, called Hato La Aurora, and we stay there for 6 nights, if I'm not mistaken. This region is seasonally inundated by floods, so we're very careful that we are choosing the absolute peak dates of the dry season to go there, which gives us the best chance of seeing jaguar. The owners of the ranch have taken a very forward-looking stance on conservation. They haven't hunted for over 40 years now, and they've been getting regular jaguar sightings over the past, let's say, 10 years. So the chances of seeing jaguar down there are really, really good. The tour's structured in a way that we maximize our time in the field. We're out early and we're spending days out in the field looking for jaguars from vehicles, so sort of safari style. And there's other great wildlife to see along the way. Iconic mammals like giant anteater, southern tamandua, the lesser anteater, and a profusion of bird life, particularly water birds. Think scarlet ibis and jabiru storks and so on and so forth. So we combine it with a couple of nights in a different spot just on the edge of the Janos, which adds a few endemic primates such as ornate titi, Brumback's night monkey, Colombian squirrel monkey, as well as a load of other great birds. So yeah, it's a 2-center tour that we're very, very excited about, and hopefully will result in great views of jaguar.
Great, Rob. Thanks very much. Well, folks, unless there's any last-minute questions, I think that brings us to the end of this evening's talk. It's great to have you with me, Rob. Can't see you, but I've heard you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thanks, Andy.
So enjoy the rest of your Colombia low season until things really start kicking off again in September, October, November. We'll keep you nice and busy again this winter. And just finally from me, thank you very much to all of you that have joined us this evening. Do appreciate your time, and very happy. I'm back in the Naturetrek office tomorrow. Very happy to have a chat on the phone or to field any questions via email. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Cheers, Andy.
Thanks, Rob.